Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Louis D'Souza and Amy Blackford. Today is Monday, August the 10th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time. And wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And my computer is deciding to play a little feedback here, so I'm going to see if I can turn this thing off. But in the meantime, it's good to have you back, Amy. I mean, we were missing you last week.
I missed it too.
And interestingly enough, you were having an experience that was somewhat similar to the one that Louis was telling us about last week. Because he had this big healing thing that went on that basically sent a shockwave through his body. It's quite a story. You got to hear the story when you get a chance.
Yes, I'm going to listen to it. It was quite amazing for me. I had this experience where I went to the lake. It's my first time being on the water. And, you know, all summer I've been at home because of COVID. And I went to the lake with my best friend, and while I was floating in the water, so it was like a deprivation tank, while I was in the water, my higher self spoke to me and told me pain is nothing but a thought form. Therefore, my pain, the chronic pain that I've been in, no matter what therapies I was doing, it wasn't working because I was missing that thought process. And by letting that go, the only reason the pain is still there is because I believe it is. My body is constantly regenerating itself. So by constantly thinking it's still there, it's still there.
Yeah, those recurrent vibrations that we keep focusing on are really annoying.
Absolutely. So it's already working.
Amy, don't you want to trade? Don't you want to trade your higher self in for another one? That's not useful information. Huh? You're responsible for your own pain. Getting your higher self. It's terrible. You want to blame somebody, don't you?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Louis is in rare form today.
Always. And it was after really listening to Michelle Blood that you had on, where she did the singing affirmations.
Yeah.
Which I tried right before going to the lake and noticed a shift. I was like, this is pretty brilliant. And then that message came through from my higher self while I was in the lake water.
Oh, okay. So one led to the other. That's even better. Yeah.
Cool.
It's amazing how one little shift in thought can kind of reveal. It's almost like it's peeling back a layer.
It is.
And once you get that layer peeled back, it just, everything seems different. The perspective shifted.
Yeah, that's what it all is.
Yeah.
Right, Louis?
I think Amy might appreciate last week's my experience from last week. Really explains a lot.
I will love to listen to it. Or could you give me just a little briefing real quick?
Well, I was in quite a lot of pain at night, and then I had this and immediately after that, complete relief and release. I was fine, and I knew I was fine, but there were a whole lot of aspects to it which I covered in last week's, and it'll take too long to cover them again. But it was brilliant, and the understanding I got from the new understanding I got from that was, to me, amazing. Yeah,
I love it. It's so amazing to me, proving to ourselves how much the mind is listening. The body is listening to what the mind is saying. It's not the other way around. So
I've been doing a little experimenting myself the last few days. Rita Giganti, who does the Friday show with myself and with Linda Armstrong, recently acquired, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, it's the little heart math device that you can hook into your phone and so forth. And
Greg Braden talks about that a lot.
Right, exactly. So I decided I was going to get one too. And I wasn't sure if I totally bought into it, but I figured it would be fun to experiment with it and see, exactly what happens if I shift my thought patterns. Am I focusing on something that I like? Am I focusing on something I don't like? What's the pattern that comes out of it? And what does it take to learn how to do this coherence, as they call it, being heart coherence and so forth. And after a few days of experimenting, I can tell you I don't have any firm conclusions yet, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. And I do think that they have somehow managed to physiologically connect liking and don't liking with their little device. I don't have it down 100%, but it's like 80 to 90% so far I focus on what I don't like and I get a red signal. I focus on what I like, I get a green signal.
And also they prove that the heart is sending out the electromagnetic waves like 100 times more than the brain. So what you feel, that's why it's the attractor. What you feel is really what's behind manifestation, the emotion.
And if it turns out that it is a 100% correlation or close to 100%, then I'm discovering something else. And this is something I wanted to ask Louis about because it's actually a little surprising to me. But Louis is actually, I think, a little bit further ahead on the development scale, so to speak, than I am. So that's why I like to ask him about these things. What I've been experiencing, Louis, with this device. Now, again, I've only played with it for a couple days, so I don't really have it down pat, so to speak.
Right.
But if I try to get myself into a good feeling place and stay there, I find that I am easily knocked off balance, but I don't feel like there's any real emotional change that happened. It's just I simply got distracted to something else, and I didn't even have enough time to focus on it to see what was the emotional feeling that went with it.
Okay.
It was almost more like it was factual. And if I thought about it, the factual thing may have been something I didn't like, so all of a sudden I flicked over to that, which is kind of consistent with what Abraham has talked about. Because Abraham says all you have to do is just focus on it for any amount of time and you're shifting your vibration.
Yes.
It's when you do it for an extended period of time that it actually starts to turn into something.
Right.
But I mean, it's really quick. It's really, really quick. And so I wanted to ask you about it, Louis. Have you ever found that it seemed like your own signals, your own emotional signals were kind of leading you astray? Because that's what I kind of feel like I've been doing as I experiment with this device. I get the sense that there are times when I have convinced myself I'm feeling good and I'm actually focusing on something I don't like, that I don't really feel good about it. And then after some time, I begin to realize, oh yeah, I don't really like what I'm feeling here, or vice versa. It could be the other way around.
So it's a very important question.
I agree. That's why I asked you.
Because what it boils down to is we're taught that emotional guidance is 100% correct all the time.
Right.
Now, why I wouldn't like this device too much is not because it's put out wrongly, and I think it's going to be used wrongly. The device is going to kind of portray that you should stay in a higher vibration more of the time, and that's not accurate. You should appreciate the negative one because they are the ones that help turn you around and expand you. And I don't feel that aspect in devices like these would be accentuated or focused on or appreciated or respected. So you're going to be trying to stay on a high vibration all the time, where that's not the design. It didn't come here to do that. It's not that important to stay on the high flying disc all the time. It's completely not. You're here to play with contrast. Otherwise, you can't go to a higher disc.
Well, I'm not sure I'd agree with the characterization, because yes, I can see how somebody could draw that conclusion. To me, that's not what the device is for. To me, the device is for learning how to maintain my focus on either what I want or what I don't want, but to maintain it rather than to be distracted away willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that aside, you now get to the point where you're on the high vibration and suddenly you find yourself out of it. Now, what you would not probably be aware is that the only way you could ever have got out of it is by changing subject.
Which I think is part of what this device teaches.
Yeah. Teaches you to remain on subject, or
it teaches
subject.
It teaches you when you change subject, you change the reading. The reading changes.
Uh-huh. So I know, because I know what you know. I understand where you're coming from, but I imagine a lot of people that get this device are not going to be in the position of fully appreciating the negative side.
Well,
and I know Walt really does. So,
yeah.
Talking to you and talking to the other listeners maybe different depending on where the listener is at with the awareness of the negative side. So, the question is really, can we trust our emotional guidance?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, you can.
It's not even that. It isn't can we trust it? It's can we read it accurately? Because that's what I'm sensing. I'm getting the sense that I don't always have an accurate read. I'm not paying close enough attention, or maybe I'm not connected enough, but I got the feeling that my reading was off.
Okay, so there's another aspect to this. Now, the device, is it picking up what you think you want, or is it picking up on what you are vibrating? You know what I'm trying to talk about
yet. I can't tell you yet. I haven't experimented enough to give you a definitive answer.
Because if the device is actually picking up your vibration, so what Abram says is the universe doesn't pick up on what you say, it picks up on what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, what you are vibrating, you're going to get, not what you are hoping to get,
mm-hmm.
where you've got doubts with that hope. So the important thing is to know the difference between those, because one of them is all about a desire that you don't have a strong enough vibration towards, so therefore it's got trains going this way and that way. You understand that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is actually what you're outputting.
Right.
So you really want to be able to be clear what the device is giving you. Is it giving you your vibrational output, or is it giving you your wish output? And how's it picking it up? And then that is something which you have to work out for yourself, and you have to be brutally honest.
Mm.
You have to say, am I really vibrating this, or aren't I? And you have to take it on board that, okay, maybe I'm not, maybe I do have too many doubts, or I am focusing a little bit too much on what I don't want, or hasn't happened, or can't manifest, or I don't have enough skills for the subject. So you're sitting there with that kind of dilemma.
Of course, there's also an issue with that too. The issue is you can get stuck in your head pretty quickly doing that, because now all of a sudden you're kind of having a little argument with myself. Well, what am I really feeling here? And now you're not connected to what you're feeling anymore. You're analyzing.
I think it would be interesting to look at it as maybe it's showing you the subconscious, because that's the part that we aren't aware of, that's got the programming that might be causing feelings that you're generating emotion around that. And also help to train people to understand their own vibration. It could be an interesting device for that.
I think it's a worthwhile device. I understand what Louis is saying, what his point is.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a really interesting device to experiment with, and to learn first of all
what does the device do? I don't know anything about it.
It basically reads your pulse and a little bit more, and I don't know what the little bit more is. I haven't figured that part out yet.
All right. It'd be interesting to know what that little bit more is.
Well, believe me, I want to know. That's part of what I'm trying to figure out.
And also how it analyzes the pulse and what it determines from it as well. Those aspects would be interesting.
It physically connects to your earlobe, and then Bluetooth connects to your phone that has some software that takes that electronic signal and does stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
We must investigate this further.
Were we going to talk about out-of-body experiences? I can't remember.
Oh, yes. Out-of-body experiences. So basically when I started having what I call my awakening back in 2011, I got very interested in out-of-body experiences. And the more research that I did, I realized I've been doing this since I was a child, just didn't understand what it was. Basically, my body would fall asleep quicker than my mind. And the next thing I know, I was flying around my room, and it was different than dreaming. And as a child, at first, it scared me because I didn't understand what was happening. So when I started inducing it and learning how to do this, at first, it was like I would get half stuck inside my body. So I would be consciously feeling myself come out of body, so to speak, or whatever that is. And my higher self I called my higher self in to assist me. And it was like feeling this pulling on my feet, just shooting up into the air. And that happened for, I want to say, a year. So I got assistance that way and had all sorts of really interesting experiences. Very different experiences. What about you, Louis?
Well, what age were you consciously trying to leave your body, play with your existing talents, and study it?
I would say 34.
Okay.
I'd been already, what I would say, interested in investigating my spirituality because I knew what I'd been taught as a kid was wrong. And so I was trying to find my way with that. But once I was 34, I had put in a lot of studying into the law of attraction, and one thing was leading to the next. And the out-of-body experiences was my next exploration of that once I started communicating with my higher self. And it's really a wonderful thing to learn how to do. Even though we already do it naturally, it's just being able to control it and do it on purpose.
Walt, you are aware you do it naturally, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
No, Walt's not necessarily going to say yes to that.
Well, before I answer your question, I want a question answered from
Okay.
her. My question to you is, why is it so interesting to you? Why do you enjoy it so much?
Because it's, first of all, very freeing for me to understand that I'm not this body. It gave me a deeper understanding of that. And so I don't fear death the way I used to. Oh. Because I understand that I'm not this body. I've experienced it enough by doing this to free me from that thought process. And then it's exploring different levels of reality. I'll tell some wild stories as we all exchange them. But just that piece right there was, I already knew that, but proving it to myself was very important, collecting the evidence.
Okay. And Louis, you're going to have to repeat your question because, quite honestly, I was so focused on my question, I didn't even hear your question. So
I'm glad, because that's what the law of attraction is going to help you stay clear and focused. So,
absolutely,
well done, Walt. High five. My question was, B was making the Amy. I won't use your surname. Amy was saying that everybody leaves their body, and we. What was your statement exactly there? You were saying
I wasn't aware of it as a child.
We all know that we leave our bodies, and I was going to say, Walt, are you really aware that you leave your body?
And all the time? Say, no, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. And 99% of the people, or 90, or whatever it is, a large percentage of the population don't know that they leave the body. They're completely clueless.
On the other hand, there's also 1/3 of the time when I don't have any clue what's going on because I'm asleep. So there could be a whole bunch of stuff.
What Amy's trying to point out, and I would also try to point out, is that you're not asleep.
Right.
Other stuff's going on, Walt. You just don't know about it.
So, Walt, do you also...
I think I just said that. I don't know what's going on when I'm asleep.
Do you remember your dreams? Let me ask you that. When you have a dream?
Most of the time, no.
Okay.
Occasionally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because before the out-of-body experience, I would call lucid dreaming, where I would become awake within the dream. And I would know it. And the minute I knew it, I would say it to myself in the dream and start being able to change what was happening around me.
Yeah, I've not had a lot of experience successfully with lucid dreaming. I've kind of a couple of times, but I haven't really gone into it extensively. And I don't really have any great success stories there.
Okay. Well, I really loved that. And so I think that's also an OBE, but it just feels different. An OBE, it feels solid like it is here. It's actually even more vibrant and everything is moving really fast. But it feels more like here in 3D reality, but just faster. So lucid dreaming has more of a dream-like feel. And I don't really know what the difference...
More like a movie-like feel than an out-of-body type feel.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so let me go back to my response to your question, Louis, and see what your follow-up is to it. Because you said, well, yeah, most people don't realize that they're having out-of-body experiences, and I'm certainly one of those. Okay. So for those of us who have been having it and not realizing it, what can we look for to identify the fact that we're having them?
Good question. So, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions, Walt, I don't like the word out of body. So I think defining it a little bit more, going into the definition, is going to help bring clarity to anybody who wants to understand all this. So I always look at it as a shift in vibration.
Okay.
So when you're in the physical universe, you're on the physical universe vibration, and you can interact with the physical universe. But as you change and you shift your focus into a higher vibrational level, the reality that's here vanishes and another reality starts appearing. Now, that reality could have some coincidence with this one. So I could find I'm in my house, and I could find that I'm in an astral wall, and I can go through an astral wall, which I can't do in the physical. I can't go through my can't go through no physical wall. But that's actually not true either, because you're not going through an astral wall. An astral wall is actually solid. You're actually going through the physical wall of your world, and you're seeing a remnants of it in that world. And the fact that it's not 100% the same, and you see a lot of differences in that other world, is because you've tuned into another vibration, and there is a whole lot of other stuff, people, entities, etc., going on in that world. It's not the same as this one. Okay. So you've now tuned your station, you've gone to this other vibration, and now you're perceiving with the vibration of those eyes, and you're perceiving the vibrational world or the level that you have tuned to. So you've now tuned to the new radio station, and you can only pick up what's on that radio station while you're in that vibration. Now, what Amy has picked up is that there's a lot higher vibration. So it feels in the beginning like something's shifting, and that your whole world is changing. Yes. Because it's a shimmering kind of thing that is of so much higher vibration than the physical that it's quite noticeable, especially in the beginning. Yes. You know, you're sitting there and going, wow, oh my God, I'm feeling like I'm moving at 1 billion times a second. And that is one of the effects. The other effects is that you can just be transported into another world and time altogether. Yes. And you now have to deal with a lot of things, like if you're sitting in the astral, or let's say on that higher radio frequency, which is the way I like looking at it, and you say, I want a cup of tea, one instantly appears in your hand.
Right.
There's no, I have to wait for somebody to get it from you and all the rest of it. And they say that's the huge advantage of the physical universe, is once you get something like a house or a car or something, it tends to stay around for a while. Okay, but once you're on the inner planes, these things just come as you think about it, and they go as you stop thinking about it, and whatever else you've moved your focus on to starts appearing. So some people have really made a focus on trying to go through their physical walls and peep into their neighbors' houses, especially when they're showering or whatever. But, you know, they've made a whole art out of this thing. So
that's the first time I ever heard being a peeping Tom as a form of an art, but okay, go ahead.
Gosh, you've got a lot to learn, Walt. So, you know, people have become more and more aware of this now. Anybody who's spiritually seeking still keeps even though they can do these things, and they've got more control, and they can be anywhere, wherever they want to be, they will also still give everybody their privacy, and they won't invade anybody else's space. And that is a very spiritual law, and it's here in the physical. You don't like it when somebody pokes you and prods you and pushes you and tells you what to do, and you know, so it's the same law. It just works out a little bit differently in the other planes. So my first experience, out-of-body experience, was I'd been studying it and looking at it and trying every technique in every book out there, and I got nowhere. I got absolutely nowhere, endlessly. And because I'd spent so much time thinking about it, I now had an active vibration of out-of-body, and because I'd given up on trying out-of-body experiences, I had a bed that was really high up. Mm-hmm. So, I actually flicked myself up and flicked myself down instead of using the stairs. And I really enjoyed this high bed. And I was just going to sleep, and suddenly I found myself head first in a body, I don't know what body, heading towards the floor out of this high bed. And I was thinking, I hope to God I'm not in my physical body. This is gonna hurt. So as I was coming down, I managed to fly around the corner, and around the corner I'd parked my bike, and my bike had two reflectors in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I reflected myself up to the hilt in South Africa. Often when you when I came back from cycling in Durban and Johannesburg, I used to say, "Oh, I almost got killed 3 times today, almost 5 times today." It's like a local joke, but really dangerous roads out there for a cyclist. So I had all these reflectors.
You were doing out of body. You figured it was safe.
Exactly, much safer. And I was coming around the corner, and I saw these 2 reflectors, but in the astral realm, they were so bright and intense, and the colors, as you know, Amy, is just on a different level altogether. That this freaked me out. I mean, where do these lights come from, and why they're so bright? And it just scared me, and I was like in my body, awake. My heart was pounding, and I was sweating. I was like, what was that? I didn't hit my head. I saw these incredible lights, and I was back in my body.
What just happened?
Yeah, what happened? Oh, my first out-of-body experience only came much later after the fear settled.
Yeah, right. First, we have to deal with the reaction, then we can think about it.
Yeah. So it is a biggie. It's a biggie because you have control where you want to go, how you want to go, to the degree to which you've practiced and all the rest of it. Future ones, I landed up going into the chair in my little room, and these little handles where you put your arms.
Mm-hmm.
I was floating through them over the chair and through the other one, as just to try and get my skill right, my technique.
Putting an old camel through the eye of the needle again.
And then I found that I was doing Tai Chi at the time, a lot of Tai Chi. And I found that I woke up in my dream state doing Tai Chi. And as soon as I as soon as I was doing my Tai Chi in my dream state, I was like, I'm in my outer body. So it went from dream to Tai Chi dreaming to conscious outer body. So there's a link there. If you ever want to study out of body experience, the most natural and fluid way of doing that is going from dreaming, writing down your dreams, becoming more aware of your dreams, focusing on your dreams, and then seeing if you can ever control a dream, and then from controlling your dream going into a conscious outer body. So what happened in my beginning stages was I was born in a house on the side of a mountain till the age of 18 with my parents, and it was a lovely house in the middle of nowhere with the monkeys and baboons as my neighbors. And I lived in the bush. I hiked and I camped, and I had a lovely time. So often, as a place that I loved, I would find myself flying into my house area and landing at the door of the French windows. And one day I saw that there was an elephant on the left-hand side, no, on the right-hand side, as I was looking at it. And on the left-hand side was my grandma's chair, which I didn't remember until this dream, that I'd burnt half of it away. So I'd had this half burnt, like woven chair, and then I had the elephant. And as I was coming in, something said to me, "Choose, Louis, which one are you going to choose?" Like, I don't want that burnt chair. And I'm feeling guilty about that in any case. I'll take the elephant, Alex. I'll take the elephant. So I took the elephant, and then the elephant decided to be Dumbo, and it started flying. And it took me up into space, and it started going faster and faster. And I remember clinging onto this warm body because I was so scared,
Yeah.
really, really scared. And I was going faster and faster and faster. And when you see the Star Trek where they're in hyperspace and everything's just going past at these tremendous speeds, and I was doing that. And of course I got totally scared, and I woke up in my physical body. But then I had many dreams back there, and another one which was quite interesting is I'm flying in again, and I see a whole lot of people on the lawn next to the pool. And I know these are not physical people. And I'm quite excited because I hadn't up to that stage had anybody really to talk to. Elephants are not pretty chatty. So I land there, and I see this group of people, and I recognize some of them as fellow spiritual travelers in the physical, in my real life. And I'm starting to chat, and hey, what are we doing today? Where are we going? And I said, oh, we're going to the moon. I said, oh, great, let's go. So we literally raised off the ground, and the moon was full that night, and we went straight up to the moon. But when we arrived at the moon, I mean, people are just going to think I'm mad, okay? But there was a whole different city there. So in the vibration that I tuned into to go to the moon, people live there. Okay. And it's not a physical one. It wasn't physical because I tuned into this other vibration. So on this other vibration, there are people living on that version of vibration that I tuned into on the moon. So we went down and we chatted to them, and we moved around and we saw the different cities and places, and I got so absorbed in it, I just found myself awake in bed later. So that's just giving you a tiny bit of an idea of the kind of experiences one can have and the importance of letting go, because when I really, really, really wanted to have an out-of-body experience, I didn't have anything. But once I just let go, I started to realize, and when I started to try to control it again there, because I knew the feeling. So one thing it really helps is to make your whole body feel like it's gone numb. You go to your toes, they're completely relaxed, blah, blah, blah. Go to the feet, completely relaxed. Go to the ankles, completely relaxed. Calf muscles, blah, 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 all the way up. And eventually your physical body feels like it's dead. It's like a heavy, dead weight. But your mind, as you were mentioning,
yes,
Amy, is still like wide awake.
Right.
And then slowly you can separate from the body. And if you perfect that, which I still haven't to this day, then you kind of are called a guru in out-of-body experiences, or changing your frequency, like I like tuning into another radio station.
I really like that perspective on it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when I first started coming out of body, changing my vibration perspective, it started the same way, where it looked like my room, my house, floating through walls, flying up and hitting my ceiling, and then suddenly going through the ceiling and seeing the layers within the ceiling that I was going through. Mm-hmm. And once I got beyond that, things started happening, such as flying through space. One of my craziest stories, and I don't think you sound crazy about going to the moon and seeing people there. I landed on what I am going to call an alien cruise ship. It was literally a cruise ship style, floating through space. And when I came in, they all stopped and stared at me. And I partied with a bunch of, I don't know what beings they were, but they were all different races. And it was such a neat experience.
Did they run around with little green suits and say meek, 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 and try to scare you?
I can't explain. They were beautiful. Some were looking more like creatures. Some of them looked more human. Yeah. It was just such an amazing experience. And I had another experience where I came out of body, shifted my perspective, my vibration, and I just shot. It was like going through a wormhole through space, and it was scaring me because it was happening so fast. All of a sudden, I see it looked like a ship of some kind, and I'm thinking it's an alien ship, but I'm seeing astronauts floating by it, and I went right under the ship and was seeing all of the details of it. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. So like what you were saying, Louis, I noticed if I would get overexcited or scared, I would all of a sudden be back in my body. I would shift back. So either if I got too excited, it would do that, or if I got scared, it would do that. And another thing that I learned is that you have to be very aware when you are having these experiences of controlling your vibration, because you are instantly,
as soon as you tune into another station, you're out of there.
yes. And what can happen is scary things can happen. You will attract what we would call darker experiences. So I quit trying to induce out-of-body experiences when I had this one where I woke up in my bedroom and it looked just like my bedroom. I was convinced. And all of a sudden, it looked like it had 3 heads, and it was a dog, like Rottweiler looking, but not. And I call it the Hounds of Hell. And it came through my door, and I immediately stood my ground. I was scared for a minute, and it jumped on the bed. And I was like, no, I'm not afraid of you. And it went away, and I came out of it. And that was, for me, I wanted to understand what was happening more so that I could properly do this. And I wanted to have some of those darker experiences because they were just as interesting and also delightful.
You got what you wanted.
Yeah. And then another really cool one I had, I went to some sort of, it was like a magical forest with caves and lights. And it was almost like, you've seen the movie Avatar.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So it was similar
Floating
to that.
Rocks
But again, it was, I can't even explain it. It was all sorts of different species. And it was like being in Alice in Wonderland. There was no fear. It was just amazing. I stayed in there for quite a while. And when I woke up out of that one, I so badly wanted to go back. I did. So now I
it happens with some of these places we go to. They're so harmonious and so not what planet Earth is.
Yeah, it's amazing. But like you, Louis, I haven't mastered it. So it happens, it doesn't happen. And I feel like when it's supposed to happen, it will. Yeah.
Because all these endless tryings that I did that didn't produce anything, that really made me give up. So I had a scary experience once. I brought it up on the show once before, but there are some interesting points in it. So I woke up in bed and I couldn't move a muscle, fully awake. Every single muscle in my body was paralyzed. And there was this black force sitting on my chest, holding me down. And I was absolutely petrified. This thing smelt, felt, and on every vibrational level as malevolent as you could possibly experience a thing. And all I did was what I would normally do, is try and move my physical body to get away. And I was really straining every single muscle in the body, and I could not do anything. So I'd learned to channel source energy, in the form of light and protecting myself. So immediately I relaxed and I just let go, and I said, let go and let God kind of thing. And I let the force flow through me from my head downwards. And instantly this force flowed through me, because my desire was great to have this removed, and it was clear. And this force shot through me like the most powerful waterfall, standing under the most powerful waterfall you've ever dreamt of, just pounding through you. Blew this thing away in a fraction of a second.
Yes.
Absolutely. But then I started getting scared of this powerful source force that was absolutely coursing through my body, and I was literally absolutely scared of that. And I think after a while it just let go, and I went back to my normal vibration and woke up and I could move. But I found out many years later that this was a very typical Black witch doctor method of killing people.
Which was
everything I said that happened, the freezing of the body, the waking up, the malevolent presence, the holding you down, etc., is a very typical Middle African witch doctor type, well, even Southern Africa. method of I don't know who would have a problem with me or whatever, but
right.
They didn't manage to kill me, I can say that. But the interesting thing for me wasn't necessarily the black force so much, or the negative side of the experience. It was more the awe and appreciation of the power of the positive force.
Yes.
Was on a level which was out of this world. It was still today, I shudder at the feeling of that power coursing through my physical body. So what you're doing is you've now tuned your vibration all the way up to source energy. And of course, nothing negative can live in there. But as I've experienced with different experiences, there is a level of awe and power, which is like not an accurate word, but it kind of conveys some part of it, that source energy is and has and exists. And we need to kind of have an appreciation for that and a respect for that, because it really, when Abram says inside of us is the power that creates worlds, I know that for a fact. It's
Absolutely.
not just a pretty story somebody's painting, a picture. And then you start to learn to tap into levels of that. And obviously you don't take your dial all the way up to source energy, because you're going to blow yourself to pieces. So you tune yourself up higher and higher and higher. And as you become more powerful and active and happy and all the rest of it, you can take higher levels of that on board. So, and it's also about practice. So if you spend every night going to that higher level, your body, your higher bodies or your nerve centers start getting used to having that level of force energy going through you.
But from what you said at the beginning of this segment of the show, even those of us, the 99% who have not experienced this, even we do this.
Yes.
So it's not like there's any lack of experience. Apparently.
Well,
although we don't seem to be.
The fact that you're human and alive means you have the source energy. I mean, if you just think about how much negativity is around you and you still manage to live and talk and be happy a lot of the time.
Pretty remarkable, no doubt.
There is something going on in the background that's doing something amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I love this.
You can look at it from.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You love it so much. Good.
I love so much what you're talking about, because when I first started having these experiences, it scared me. And this is when I first started communicating with what I call my higher self. And I would call my higher self in and feel this force around me, protecting me. Because I felt like a fish out of water too. I couldn't control the way my body was moving. Sometimes I couldn't see, but I could hear. Sometimes I couldn't hear, but I could see. And so at first it made me feel more comfortable to know that I had a guide through this, and then I didn't need the guide anymore. But it got me through those first steps. And for you, Walt, I think it begins with setting the intention to start remembering your dreams. That's really the first step. And then when you can begin remembering even a detail of your dream, you can start having the lucid dreaming where you're aware within the dream. So it kind of happens in stages.
And I would think that part of it is you have to want it on some level.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. There are many people that have absolutely no interest in this, and they don't tune into that vibration consequently, and they will not experience any of it. And that is perfect for them, because they have different wants and they will have different desires, and they will draw those towards them. So, this chat is more about what our experience is, not that everybody should be doing it and that this is the way to go. It's definitely not where it's at. I was fascinated by it. I'd read books I still got some astral travel by, can't remember, that guy that I talked about, who's an American, who big businessman, who built his own little studio and started all these testings and all the rest of it, the Monroe Institute. It was fascinating. I read all these stuff and all the conclusions that he came to and all the rest of it. And, he had a lot of very, very intelligent and highly qualified individual studying with him. I think he's passed away now. But his institute, I'm pretty sure, is still running strong. And there's a lot of people who, he naturally had out of bodies and got curious and was tired of going to the doctors and having them telling him he was a bit mad and take another tablet, guy, go home. There's nothing wrong with you, and eventually he started just giving into it and letting go and feeling it and experiencing it. He's got a great story if you want to kind of go from somebody who's really not into it and doesn't want it to eventually submitting to the fact that he's experiencing it and he can't deny it anymore, and let's study it. So it was a good example. Munro is his surname, I think, the Munro Institute. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have two questions at this point. The first question is very similar to the kind of question that I have long asked about just general attracting what you want to manifest into your life. And that's the letting go thing, because from the very beginning, my first question was, okay, I have to let go. What am I letting go of? And answering that question has taken years. So I'm hoping you can cut it down a little bit, slightly less than years, and give me an idea. What is it I'm letting go of?
It's easy to answer, Walt. You understand Abraham Hicks?
Okay, well, fairly well. Yeah.
You understand step 1?
Yeah.
You understand step 2?
Yeah.
And what is step 3?
Letting go. But the problem is I never really have figured out what it is I'm letting go of. I figured out ways to kind of sneak my way into letting go.
Mm-hmm.
But
sneak in the back door.
Yeah, in the back door. Yeah,
yeah.
That's a good way of describing it. But I rarely am able to actually say, okay, this is something I'm hanging on to and I'm letting go of it. That's a pretty rare experience for me. Most often I let go of stuff. Oh, by the way, I just let go of something. That kind of thing.
So step 1, I want a red car. I don't have enough money, train going the other way. Step 1, again, I really want the red car and I like the way it smells and drives. It's a Jaguar and it's red. Okay. But can I pull off? This is one of the things I used to say to myself. Can I pull off driving a Jaguar? Is it me? So you've got all this crap. So what the letting go is these things that are going in the opposite direction to what you want. That is what you need to let go of.
Now that's a clear,
is it.
Concise description of what you're looking for.
It's really, really simple. There's nothing confusing about it. It is all about step 3. And once you look at the train example, there's the only thing that's stopping you getting that Jaguar is yourself. Is your thoughts about not being worthy, not enough money, not being able to pull off a Jaguar, all the other crap that goes with it. That's the only thing that's stopping you having out-of-body experience, only thing that's stopping you getting to the next level of whatever you want, blah, 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 blah. So
it's not its own set of examples. It's basically the same stuff. It's just applied in a different medium.
It is. It's step 3. And when you really get step 3, you get it. It's like light bulb moment. Oh.
Receptive mode.
Oh, everybody's talking about let go and let God. It's actually, you actually got to do that. So, yeah, it's a bit of a journey because a lot of ahas have to kick into place before you can see how it works for you in your life. Okay, so it's a bit of a journey, but the satisfaction once you start getting it, or the manifestations that start appearing left, right, and center are just gorgeous, delicious, and fascinating, and scrumptious. And
the second thing that I wanted to bring up is that as you were describing these experiences, I could very easily imagine that someone, say 100 to 150 years ago, describing the same things would have been thrown into a mental institution because they were seeing things. They were seeing things that weren't actually there. And they were talking about things that weren't actually there. And any objective observer could tell they weren't actually there. So this person must be mad. And they had to be thrown into an institution. And it just occurs to me that probably describes a significant number of people who were institutionalized. Just
absolutely.
It probably does, but there's an aspect which I love that Abram brought up about drugs. So drugs usually, let's use marijuana for an example. Mario really helps you get into a step 3. and it just lets go, and you let God, and everything's beautiful, and Amy, you're amazing, and Walt, you're the best thing I've ever seen, and and so you go on and on. And so it really hit home.
Step 4, that's the one where you're hungry for everything, but okay, we'll go with this for a moment.
So Abram's got one of these dudes on the floor, in the hot seat, and Abram's saying to them, they were saying, oh, everybody's lovely and this is beautiful, and I'm feeling so good and I'm in such a high vibration, and it's going on and on. And Abram says, yeah, so tell me what you want. Oh, no, it just feels good. No. So tell me what you want. Oh, no. And so Abram was saying, do you see what I'm trying to point out? These drugs that you're taking are affecting your step 1.
That's true.
Now, a lot of these people who are in loony institutes, if you told somebody you had a massive story, they'd say, yeah, cool. So you're talking rubbish or whatever. But once it starts affecting your life, once it starts affecting your step 1, that's when you start landing up in a mental institute. That's when they feel people need to protect you and help you and protect you from harming others, et cetera, et cetera. So it's when you somehow manage to get into step 3, maybe even without drugs, and you're not able to do step 1 and get the whole process going cleanly and clearly, that people are generally institutionalized. They're not necessarily for most other reasons. I'm sure at some stage, if you even talked anything like this, you would be thrown in a pond, and if you managed to float, you would be killed because you're a witch, and if you drowned, it was okay, you weren't a witch, but it's all right, it's all cool. And I'm sure there were experiences like that, but I'm sure they're more few and far between than the norm.
That's probably true.
That answers your question.
It was more of an observation, but that's fine. I mean, treat it like a question. That's a good thing. I guess I have the same reaction that I've usually had to this topic. I mean, there's a certain curiosity that I think anybody has. I mean, Amy, when you were describing what you were describing, I was getting images from Star Trek and Star Wars and Harry Potter, and it was kind of like drawing from all these different realms, piecing
Absolutely.
it all. Yeah,
it really is fun, and just follow, when you want to start having them, you will. And there are steps that you can follow if you want to just experiment like you are with the heart math device. It's just another exploration. It's just another way of expanding beyond the physical body. And like I said, the biggest benefit for me is not only is it fun and engaging, it was really understanding, because I knew I was not my body. My body,
sure. Oh yeah,
own consciousness, it's a vehicle to my eternal self. And until I started having these experiences, I didn't really believe it. I didn't know it. I hadn't fully accepted it. And so there was still that fear factor. So that for me, it was very liberating.
But is it possible to have these experiences and not realize that you're having them? And I say that because, in part of what you guys said earlier, that everybody has them at one time or another. So I'm wondering, like, do I have them when I'm asleep and I'm in a dream state and I don't remember my dream state, but I'm experiencing it even though I don't remember it later on?
Absolutely. That's
what do you think?
That is what I have seen. So, I've gone on top of a town and just sat in the middle of the air, and then you sit there and then you watch as the night starts progressing, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, you start watching the bodies rise out from all over the place, and you start seeing them all starting to do their own things. And if you went to any of those individuals in the morning, say, I saw you floating in the air above the town, the next day they're going to yeah, right. But yeah, many people do have lots of different experiences. I've helped people transition in death while I've been out of the body. So I've had that honor as well as helping some other individual whose job it was to do that. And he said, would you like to help me? This guy is going to die and we're going to help them transition into the inner worlds. So there are... So you ask yourself, well, should I try do this or try?
Actually, I haven't asked myself that, believe it or not.
But if you did, I would say to you, yeah, Walt, well, you're not going to make a lot of friends, and you're not going to become particularly popular. But if you get your podcast with 1 million views every day, people are going to recognize you and celebrate you, and all the rest of it. So, there are certain things that appear more to Walt than otherwise, and there's very little recognition aspect to any of my stories. Nobody's going to give me any recognition for that.
Well, what I was thinking is, when you were describing this as in the way that you were describing it, and then I raised the question, well, it sounds very much like something that you could experience in a dreamscape and not remember. What I was thinking is there a significant difference between an out-of-body experience and just what we call dreaming? Because what we call dreaming,
yes, the difference is awareness
with physical reality.
Right. It's
the difference is awareness.
Yeah.
One, you're aware you're doing, and the other one, you're not aware of. That's it. One, you can bring back consciously images of where you've been, and the other one, you have done them, but there is a sensor. So one of the reasons why we can't bring back a lot of the stuff from when we sleep is because you're going to places that are so out of character with planet Earth and humans and the experiences we normally have, that when it comes into when you come back to the body, you're now trying to relate something that is so out there into where you are now, and the sensor kicks in and says, I can't have you believing all that, so I'm going to block you. Some people don't have that sensor, and stuff just floods through, and you think they're absolutely manically mad. But it's a sensor to help us really. It's a very valuable sensor, and it's there to help us play the physical game on planet Earth. Yeah. And as I say, there's incredible value to it. So once I went through a lot of these out-of-body experiences and going to those higher planes a little more often, I used to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, and I couldn't recognize myself.
Wow.
Every part of me felt so changed that I couldn't quite correlate this world to that world. And when somebody, I'd walk downstairs and I'd see this person for breakfast, and it's like, why aren't you angry with me? Was it a dream? Was it a real? I'll work this out. And you're sitting there totally confused, and you just keep quiet and you watch for a while, and you kind of pick up the cues of what's going on.
Yeah. What's the conversation? Oh yeah, okay.
For me, the dreaming
it's challenging.
For me, with dreaming, it just feels foggier. I can remember a lot of my dreams, but when I have these experiences where
crystal clear, there's no doubt.
Out of body, it's
no doubt.
It is more real than the physical, bright. It's so hard to explain, but it feels physical. It has the same elements of this reality. It feels that real. And where dreams, I'm shifting from one thing to the next, and it's kind of foggy. I can remember little pieces of it. But when I come out of body, I remember every detail, and I'm completely aware of it from the moment it starts happening. So I don't really know why that is, or what is determining that. But it definitely, there's a distinct difference to it for me personally.
Experientially, there's a big difference.
Yes.
Yeah. And I could see how that would make a huge difference in the way you categorize it. Just the fact that it's experientially so different. How could you say it's similar to something else that isn't?
Right.
Category. So yeah, sure, it makes sense. Well, this is interesting. This has been a fascinating discussion. In the time that we have remaining, I want to make sure I get in the little message that says, those of you who have not downloaded the app, download the app, because not only do you get these great conversations like this one that we're having today, where we're learning about out-of-body experiences of all things, but you also get all the little freebies that many of our co-hosts have included in the app. We just added the one that Cindy Chavez gave to us. It's her ebook, The Lovely Magician's Guide to Soulmate Success. And there's more coming too. And they're all free. That's what's so cool about it. It's all just part of having the app. So download the app. And so many of you have been downloading it. I've been getting good response on it. People are liking it. That's good. For those of you who haven't downloaded it, come on, just go ahead. It doesn't hurt. It's actually easier than the out-of-body experiences. Those are the harder ones. This is the easy one. You just download the app and play.
I love it.
I love the app. I listen to it. I listen to the podcast when I go grocery shopping, because wearing the mask does induce a little bit of panic for me. and I just don't like the way it feels, and it just keeps me aligned. So it completely takes my focus off it.
Oh, Amy, let's dig into that next week. Panic
We
about
shall.
the noise.
Who says that we lack interesting conversational topics on the show? Certainly not me, because every single show it's going to be a different one. And this is cool. This is good stuff. So, all right. Well, thank you for introducing me, and I think many listeners, to out-of-body experiences, guys. And it's fascinating to me. The biggest part for me is how similar your stories are.
Yes.
You guys are telling very much the same story. You know, slight differences in detail and so forth, but overall, you're telling the same story. And that's always interesting.
And I'm going to definitely listen to the podcast where you are explaining yourself, the healing process, because I just love how that synced up as well.
Self-healing is a huge thing. I love the fact that he told that story last week as well. I love the fact that you shared your story today. I think these kinds of stories are probably, from my perspective, the most important kinds of stories we tell. I mean, certainly the stories that are involved, with, bringing in extra money or getting that Jaguar or getting that special relationship, those are all really important, but none of it makes any difference if you don't have your health.
That's right.
If you have your health,
letting go of emotional trauma, anything, when you learning to self-heal is definitely going to be a foundational piece of you evolving even faster.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I love something I learned in network marketing. Facts tell, stories sell.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yes. And the most successful storytellers are the ones who win. So thank you very much, guys. Very interesting. Thank you very much to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.